Hi, this is a video response to iLastDays. I want to thank you for taking the time to respond to my comment. Please, you don't need to apologize for this. There was no offense taken. I just didn't think that your video response to my comment. I didn't think that your video response to my blasphemy challenge was linked. So it's not an issue, and I don't want to make one of it. I want to thank you for taking the time for finding out, for looking up those questions. Question for evolutionists. Evolutionists is not, of course, a word that is very often used. I think it's very modern. Certainly wasn't around 10 years ago. I think Richard Dawkins describes himself as one now, but it's almost used as an insult, and especially in America. It's a bit like the word liberal. People use it as an insult, but it's fine, and if it's a new word, then I have no objection to it. I noticed that these are not your questions. They are in fact from a debate at the Winona State University in Winona, Minnesota, which January 9th, 1993. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of these questions have been answered already. Where did space for the universe come from? Where did matter come from? Where did the laws of the universe come from? And so forth, going on all the way down to what is so scientific about the idea of hydrogen as becoming human. Now, I'm not a scientist. I have an academic background in history and linguistics. I've got a bachelor's degree, and I went on to do a master's in medieval history. I have a reasonably good education, and I'm sure that a lot of these questions have already been answered, but what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to answer them because I'm not the expert that you need. If you want an expert, I recommend you go to your local science department and you have a chat. I wouldn't go looking online, because so much rubbish is out there, so much crap, if you'll pardon my French, from people like Kent Hovind and many others, people from the Discovery Institute, who have continuously attacked the scientific establishment to further a particular agenda and make a hell of a lot of money. So these are questions that you should be asking a scientist. You shouldn't be asking somebody who's an expert in medieval history or linguistics. So I'll leave that up to that particular magisterium, and hopefully you can get an answer from them. There's a number of books, great books. You should try them out. Don't believe everything you read online. So stick with those, and stick with conversations you have with scientists. And I'm talking about, the real scientists, not the 700 who have actually signed on to the creationist listings. 700 out of 400,000, I believe it's in America. But are you actually from America? I detect a little hint in your accent. It sounds Germanic. I'm not quite sure. But I was looking through these questions, and there's one thing that strikes me. It's the fact that you've polarized the issue. You've polarized the issue in the following manner. If you ask the question, where did matter come from? And you aren't satisfied with Big Bang explanations or M theory or superstring theory. A really good book on that is Brian Greene. Can't see it, can you? I need to check out this bloody webcam. Brian Greene, Fabric of the Cosmos, and then there's Black Holes, Information and Superstring Revolution by Susskind and Lindsay. Quite good books. Also some good books on quantum mechanics, but I'll let you figure that one out. But a lot of these questions you've answered from the standpoint of a yes or no position, and I don't think that's right. I think that you've drawn a conclusion, you've decided God exists, Jesus is my Lord and Savior, you know, that's fine, you know, I have no objection, it doesn't work for me, but that's how you want to see life. But what you've done is you've started with a conclusion and you've looked for evidence, and if you don't like the evidence, you look for ad hoc arguments. You try to interpret the information to suit your previously already formed and monolithic conclusion. And what you've done here is use the God of the Gaps fallacy. That is to say that if you can't find one answer, or if you don't agree with one answer given by science or, you know, molecular or particle physics, you'll immediately assume that then, therefore, you know, the God of the Gaps, my God, Jehovah, the God of Abraham, must be the one solution. And if you're being consistent, you will see that this is actually a premature and irrational thing to do, because you will have to admit that what you've done is open the gate not only to the God of Abraham, but you've also opened the gate to Odin, Zeus, Jupiter, if you're using the Roman mythology, Quetzalcoatl. You've opened the gate to Allah, you've opened the gate to Freya, to Loki, to Amaterasu, to all of the other gods out there. So this is not an argument for God with a capital G, it's an argument for theism. And that's fine. As I've said in one of my previous videos, which you probably should watch, which is called What Are You Trying to Prove? I argue that when you do this, when you use arguments or questions for evolutionists, what you are in fact doing is not arguing the existence of your particular God, the God of Abraham. What you are doing is arguing primarily the God of deism, the belief that a supernatural entity created the universe. Now this could be pluralistic entity, or it could be a singular entity, and then had nothing else to do with it. Or you're arguing, rather, polytheism, because you used the argument of the car last time, and I argued that it's more likely that the universe would therefore have been created by a team of engineers rather than a single entity. And you're of course arguing or opening the door to all the other gods. So what are you trying to prove? You know, are you trying to prove the existence of your God, in which case I'm happy to look at the evidence, but make sure that it is evidence for your God and that you can't also interpret it as being evidence for other gods, and then I'll be happy to respond. Or are you just trying to prove the existence of the supernatural? And if that is the case, then, you know, I'd like to see the proof of this. You know, that's what it's based on. You need to prove things by using evidence rather than undermining things like geology and evolution and physics and chemistry, which is in fact what you are doing. And there's one last thing I wanted to point out. What has creation science or intelligent design science achieved? It's done nothing. What peer-reviewed literature has been released? Nothing. What research has been done? Nothing. The only thing that intelligent design and creation science has done since, well, in the past 50 years is undermine established science. You know? And in the meantime, what has evolutionary science done? It's done an amazing amount of things. It's come up with a variety of cures for all sorts of things, a variety of chemical traces for things like early cancer detection and so forth. So don't forget that if you want to undermine evolution, not only are you undermining something which is taught in school and that is completely and utterly corroborated by mountains and mountains and mountains of evidence, you're also undermining scientific advances over the past however long, you know, evolutionary biology has been around. Was it? No. Modern wise, it's been around for about 50 years with the advances that we know of it. But I'm coming up on my 10 minutes now, so I'll thank you for your response. Maybe you can respond to this. I'm not going to respond to your questions because you really need to talk to an expert. Ciao.